basically forwarded it on to the full committee without a recommendation, because we just felt that we needed to move it on. We had any hope, of having movement at all this year. But this is the tax credit bill for private schools. I think all of you are very somewhat familiar with this bill. We've had it in past years. And I'll ask Sally to kind of give the specifics.
So before we do that, let me just, for the allocation of the committee and the body, some person I had a conversation about this in November last year at one of the Courson meeting, indicated to him that we would try to expedite this as quickly as possible. The bill went through, I think, in January. As you mentioned, we've had four hearings, or actually 2 public hearings on it, so you can answer the testimony.
This bill will provide scholarships for low-income students and tuition tax credits for students who attend participating independent schools, and also tax credits of up to $1,000 per student for homeschool expenses. Scholarships to help eligible students attend participating independent schools will be funded by donations to student scholarship organizations, or SSOs, that come from individuals and corporations who in turn may claim a state tax credit for the donation. On the scholarship eligibility, a qualifying student who transfers to or enters kindergarten at an independent school will be eligible if they also have free or eligible for their family income for free or reduced lunch or on Medicaid. Students who generated a tax credit are not eligible for the scholarship also. Scholarship value may not exceed the greater 50% of the state's money to the district, or to 50% of the state's money to the district, or the base student costs. Qualifying student is defined as a student who was a South Carolina resident and who was enrolled in the South Carolina secondary primary school at the kindergarten level for the preceding school year, or who was eligible to enroll in a qualified 5K program. There are several types of individual tax credits. Individuals may claim a tax credit for tuition paid for a qualifying student to attend an independent school and for homeschool. The tax credit will be available fiscal year 12 and ongoing to public school students who transfer to a participating independent school, and also 5K students enrolling in an independent school, and then as the 5K student continues to be in an independent school without bills off. The tax credit has the same value limit as the scholarship, in other words, 50% of the state money to the district or the base student cost, whichever is more, and may not exceed the actual tuition paid. It's available fiscal year 15 and to all otherwise eligible students expanding to non-qualifying independent school students. In other words, those students that have already been in an independent school and did not transfer. The total amount available for these tax credits, though, is capped at 80% of the aggregate savings for the local districts. And this category would ultimately be phased out after 2003 because it would no longer be applicable. These 2 tax credits may not be taken if the student's enrollment in independent school is terminated at any time during the academic year for any reason. Beginning in the first year of the program, parents of homeschool students could claim a tax credit up to $1,000 per qualifying homeschool student. This would be for students that transfer from public school to homeschooling, or a student that begins being homeschooled at age 5 and going forward. Tax credits to student scholarship organization contributions. It provides that individuals and corporations may make contributions to the SSO and claim the credit against state income tax and certain other taxes, and we'll talk about that relative to the amendment. The bill also requires a budget control board to calculate savings in the state general fund. It says an independent school that chooses to accept scholarship or tax credit students must meet certain qualifications, such as they must have a physical location in South Carolina which the student attends classes. They must meet certain requirements regarding compliance with state and federal laws, teacher credentials, and testing. Must be a member in good standing of the South Carolina Association of Christian Schools or the South Carolina Independent School Association, or SACS. And they must produce certain fiscal accountability reports if they receive more than $100,000 from SSOs in a state fiscal year. SSOs must allocate 95% of their annual revenue for which scholarships are issued for tax credit purposes to scholarships or tuition grants for qualifying students to attend the schools. They may not use more than 5% of the contributions for administrative expenses. And then of that 5%, they can use no more than a third of that for fundraising for the SSO. They must expend 95% or more than net eligible contributions and may carry forward no more than 5%. Anything more than 9% or any more than 5% rather will have to be returned to the state treasurer. They may not restrict or reserve scholarships for use in a particular school or provide scholarships to child of an owner or operator of the school or an SSO. And they must provide certain required information reports to the EOC and Department of Education. State Budget and Control Board has responsibilities such as calculating 80% tuition tax credit, and they must calculate program savings annually. The ERC has a role as well. They must annually verify and publish a list of eligible schools and SSOs meeting the requirements. They must receive and review annual designated reports. They must select an independent research organization and collect an annual report test results administered as assigned. The EOC and Department of Education have worked together to provide a long-term evaluation of the program impact. This will be every 5 years, but the first one will be after the first 3 years. The Department of Education has additional responsibilities such as cross-check the enrollment list of more duplication of student enrollment, maintain a list of tests identified to meet testing requirements, and require 4 reports from non-profit SSOs, and report annually any allegations or violations. The subcommittee amended based on a number of things that was presented to clarify and clean up some of the language, such as allowing students to receive multiple scholarships, but the scholarship still cannot exceed the limit described earlier. To clarify, the student may receive scholarships of generated tax credit, but not both. Specifies BEA as a certain responsibility within the Budget and Control Board. Clarifying and correcting how savings to the general fund will be calculated. Specifies who is eligible for the 80% pool credit. Requires verification for homeschool tax credit because everyone else has to verify their credit. And adds specific state taxes against which a corporation or person may claim a credit against their taxes, such as bank tax, license fees, or insurance taxes, and limits tax credit for donations to SSOs to the 95%. Allows tax credit for SSO donations to be carried forward for 3 years. In other words, that's permissive. An organization may choose to do that. And changes responsibility of reports of the EOC, takes out the Legislative Audit Council. Changes failing public school to demographically similar public schools and evaluation requirements of the long-term evaluation. Provides a grievance process for independent schools not included or removed from the list of eligible schools. Requires maintenance of a website. And assigns responsibility for 5-year studies for the bill will take effect upon the governor's signature. It does have a fiscal impact and a revenue impact, which is summarized at the bottom. The fiscal year impact for the first year would be not quite $275,000. For the second year would be $324,000. Going forward, it's like fiscal impact would be $324,000. This would be in addition to any information that we get from the Department of Revenue on their impact. The revenue impact is stated at the bottom. For the first year, the net impact to the state, savings, less the tax credits. The first year it's positive, would be a little bit better than $2 million to the favorable. The second year, it will be a $6 million negative amount, building up to fiscal year 24, a negative amount of $133 million.
Sally, thank you. Something work is something very, you've been very passionate about this issue. Would you like to make commentary?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, Jefferson defines liberty as having choices. Someone with no choices, they're either a slave or a prisoner. Someone else makes every decision for them. Freedom is the complete opposite. That is when you have unlimited choices. Somewhere in the middle is where we have liberty. Liberty is a measure of individual choices, and in this country is something we place great value on. American freedom has enabled us to achieve a higher standard of living than any group of people that have ever existed on this planet. The principle being, the greater the liberty, the greater the freedom. The greater the freedom, the greater the quality of life. The application of the principle of liberty has empowered us. It has enabled individuals, groups, and organizations to continually compete to become the recipient of our choice. Folks innovate, they create, they invent things, they continually strive to deliver a better product or a better service, to be more cost effective in all they do so that they will be the beneficiary of our choice. When the forces of freedom and competition are introduced in a greater capacity in our K-12 public school system, we will have improvement in education. The educational experiences for all children will improve. And I can say that with confidence because we have the experience in history of what has occurred in other states when school choice programs were initiated. In 1995, our state spent $3.4 billion on our K-12 public school system. In 2009, that had nearly tripled to $9 billion. More money isn't necessarily the answer. Money helps, but it's not necessarily the answer. Choice helps. Competition helps. We have the experience with other states. We know what we're talking about. We have coupled together a bill taking the best parts of what has happened in other states. Arizona, Florida, Georgia have similar aspects to what we've included in this bill, but we've also learned from some of their negative experiences, and we've corrected that to the best of our ability. And even the Cato Institute defines this as the best school choice bill that has yet to be written. Members of the committee, for the sake of the children of this state, for the sake of improving education, not only in our traditional public schools, but for improving educational choices for the parents across the state, I would urge your consideration and passage of this Educational Opportunity Act. This has been something that's been discussed now for a number of years, and I believe it's time that we move this bill forward to the full Senate for deliberation and consideration.
Well, you moving for a favorable report on the bill.
Yes, I am.
Do I get a second? Second. Seconded by Sean. Discussion. Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor of Senator Berkeley's motion to move the bill forward, S 414, raise your right hand, please. Six in favor, all opposed, raise your right hand. Motion fails by a vote of 6 favorable, 9 unfavorable. The bill remains in committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've got 3 regulations that we need to take up.